Have you ever wondered how you can say "and you" or "me too" in Russian? Long story short, "and you" may sound as «а ты», «а вы», «а тебе», «а вам», «а вас», «а тебя», and many others. And «me too» may sound as «я тоже», «мне тоже», «и мне», «меня тоже», and many others as well. Why? Let's find out. The reason to that is that in Russian, we don't use just one form of pronouns «я», «ты» or «вы», but several depending on a phrase. Меня зовут Юлия. Я из России. Мне 36 лет. Here are all the possible forms of these three personal pronouns. So, when answering a question in Russian, you have to pay attention to what form of ты or вы was used in it, and use a corresponding form of я. In other words, if in a question was used ты or вы, you will use я in your answer. If it's тебя or вас, you'll use меня. If it's тебе or вам, you'll use мне, and so on. Is it important? Yes, it's crucial. Notice that the second and the fourth lines here are identical. So why do we need both of them? Can't we just get rid of one? I'll address that at the end of the lesson. So, for example, the question is «Откуда вы?» The pronoun «вы» belongs to the first line. So to answer that, what will we use? Right, also the pronoun from the first line, «я». No other option is possible. Откуда вы? Я из России. Now, if we want to ask a person back, and you, what we'll be using? Also an appropriate pronoun from the first line. Откуда вы? Я из России. А вы? And to say me too, guess what? We'll again use an appropriate pronoun from the same first line. Откуда вы? Я из России. А вы? Я тоже. Or и я. These are synonymous. Once again, remember that we have to stay with pronouns of the same line. That's crucial. Of course, you'll also be using ты or вы, not randomly, but depending on who you're talking to, whether it's your friend or your boss, for instance. Let's look at another example. Как вас зовут? In this question, we use the form вас, not вы, or тебя if it's an informal chat. Because this question literally means, how do they call you? Как вас зовут? Как тебя зовут? Again, not ты, but тебя. So to answer this question, we'll have to use a corresponding pronoun from the same line. Как вас зовут? Меня зовут Юлия. Как тебя зовут? Меня зовут Джон. Тебя, меня even sound very similar, right? To ask the person back, and you will stay in the same line. Как вас зовут? Меня зовут Юлия. А вас? And to say me too, we'll once again use a pronoun from the same line. Меня тоже. Try it yourself now. Как тебя зовут? Меня зовут Джон. А тебя? Меня тоже. I hope it makes sense so far. Let's look at some other examples. How do you ask, how old are you in Russian? Сколько тебе лет? Or сколько вам лет? Here we have to use a pronoun from the third line, because this question literally means how many years are given to you. So to answer that and ask and you, we'll also use a pronoun from the third line. Сколько тебе лет? Мне 42 года. А тебе? Мне тоже. Now let's look at some less obvious examples. When you ask «Как дела?», you actually imply «Как у тебя дела?». This question literally means «How are your things?». How are the things next to you going? Дела is a plural form of дело. It means things to do, business. Even when people skip this middle part, it is still implied. So it doesn't matter whether you were asked a full or a short form of this question, «Как у тебя дела?» or «Как дела?». To answer it, you'll say, for example, «Отлично, а у тебя?» Not «а ты», not «а тебе» or anything else, but «а у тебя». And if the other person wants to say «me too», it will sound as, can you guess? Right. У меня тоже. Or и у меня. Как дела? Отлично. А у тебя? У меня тоже. Как дела? Спасибо. Все хорошо. А у вас? У меня тоже. Спасибо. Как дела? Неплохо. А у тебя? И у меня ничего. And what if, say, your friend just asks you, как ты? How are you? It means the same, just a slightly different form of a question. How will you say, good, and you? So here you'll have to stick to the pronouns of the first line. Как ты? Хорошо. А ты? Я тоже. Remember, we have to always stay in one certain line in this chart for the questions and the answers. And how do you say nice to meet you in Russian? Right. Очень приятно. Or приятно познакомиться. In both of these phrases, you're implying the word мне, to me. It's very pleasing to me. Or it's pleasing to me to meet you, to get acquainted with you. That's why if you want to answer me too to these, it will sound as мне тоже or и мне. Очень приятно. И мне. Приятно познакомиться. Мне тоже.
Очень рад. Очень рад познакомиться. Очень рад. Здравствуйте, царь. Очень приятно. Царь. Очень приятно, царь. Очень приятно. Здравствуйте, царь. Очень приятно, царь. Царь. Очень приятно. Здравствуйте, царь. Очень приятно. Очень...
And let's look at one more example. Мне нравится русский язык. А тебе? Мне тоже. Russian seems appealing to me. How about you? To me as well. Тебе нравится учить русский? Да, очень. А тебе? Мне тоже. Тебе здесь нравится? Да. А тебе? Мне тоже. So the bottom line of today's lesson is that there is no uniform way to ask "and you" or to say "me too" in Russian. It will vary depending on a phrase you're implying or referring to. So as a beginner, you have to always pay attention to the words used in the question. And in different phrases, you'll use different forms of pronouns я, ты, or вы. If you look at this chart, you'll find corresponding forms of these three pronouns in each line. Actually, these lines aren't just random. They represent 6 so-called cases in Russian. You've already learned that the Russian verbs change their endings in the present tense in 6 different ways, and that's called conjugation. In a similar way, Russian nouns, adjectives, pronouns also change their endings in 6 different ways. These ways are called cases, and the process is called declension. So in this chart, you actually see the 6 cases for the pronouns я, ты, and вы. The forms of these particular words will sound the same in the second and fourth cases. With other words, it will be different, so we can't get rid of one of these cases, right? The first line in this chart is called the nominative case. The word nominative comes from the word name. We are just naming a subject. This is the initial, original form of a noun, adjective, or pronoun. That's the way you'll find them in a dictionary. Grammatically, words in the nominative case are subjects, people or things that perform the main action, main actors. So in the phrases like «Откуда ты?» or «Я из Перу», «Я живу в Перу», «ты» or «я» are subjects. And in phrases like «Мне 28 лет», «Меня зовут Джон», «Как у тебя дела?» «Мне», «меня», «у тебя» are not main subjects. An action is applied to them, happening to them. 28 years are given to me. They call me John. How are the things next to you going? I hope I didn't confuse you, but on the opposite, clarified some things. Скоро увидимся. And now, check yourself with the following phrases and write down your answers to them in a comment below.